Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. So going around these days, there's a lot of conspiracies that are making their way around the internet, especially on YouTube, that would have been squashed even a year and a half ago. And one of the things is the flat earth theories that have taken great hold, getting millions of views, along with the young earth kind of people that, taking scripture and saying, the world has let me down. We can't trust anybody after COVID. The world's lying to us. It's run by Satan. And I want something I can pick up the Bible, read something that I can believe, and hook my faith to it. And there's a lot of people who are very damaged, especially coming out of COVID, because so many people let them down. And so I find it very interesting that the flat earth discussions are getting a lot of traction. And that's something we need to talk about, because there's probably more to it than just a free marketplace of ideas. So regarding, I'm certainly not a young earther, although I have said going to the Creation Museum in Northern Kentucky that I like it a lot. I think it's a great place, and I think I would say having faith in something good is better than having trust in something that has facts that can be manipulated by institutional corruption. So with all that said, it's better to have faith in something that don't have all the facts, that you're trusting through time, and scripture captured the most honest appraisal someone could have had at the time, and that God guided the hand to make sure it all says what you think it says. After you translate all the different versions of it through all the different languages over time, that you can trust it. I tend to question everything, and don't trust much of anything that's anybody gives me until I can validate it myself. Now, when it comes to flat earth, I've flown around the world several times. I know I've seen the curvature of the earth from 40,000 feet plus. And I can say that the earth is round. I work in aerospace, so I know people who have put equipment on the moon and the kind of logistics it takes to do that. I also I know people at SpaceX and the efforts it takes to get starships out into space. You can clearly see the curvature of the earth. They land in the Indian Ocean. So we have reference points that if you're in your regional location and you're reading scripture and you're interpreting what you're seeing and the world's lied to you, true, all those accounts. But you also have to, you have to get all the information there is. And I get it that all the institutions have lied. NASA was built around occult practices, true. Jack Parsons was in an occult with Aleister Crowley. So that was how the Jet Propulsion Laboratory started, and NASA began essentially under occult understandings. All true, but that doesn't change. That doesn't change the basic facts of the matter. And again, I've seen the curvature of the earth myself. I've traveled through all the different time zones. I communicate with people all over the world every day that are in different time zones. The sun's at a different place. So I deal with the curvature of the earth professionally. And so I can say that if you need validation, I can certainly provide it and discuss it a lot. The interesting thing is a lot of people are turning to scripture because, especially after COVID, and the basic foundations of the world have dropped out underneath them, and all the institutional lies that were made very relevant, people have been turning towards scriptural references, and I think that's great. And I certainly wouldn't want to discourage anybody from doing that, because I think it's, in its essence, the thinking about good things is good for people. And there's a lot of good that comes from studying the Bible. And a culture really can thrive if it adheres to the values articulated in the Bible. So that's a lot of people are turning to that. So there's a lot of discussion about the fallen angels and Mount Hermon, and all things that are very valid. A lot more people these days talk about the earth being inhabited by giants prior to human civilization taking on the current form. And the pre-deluge, pre-flood period had very evil giant people all over it. And I've talked extensively about the giants in North America and how there's a big conspiracy, the mound cultures, and that in a lot of mounds, most mounds, you have large people buried in them, and that's the reason why there's not more archaeological digs. And I would point to where I live in southern Ohio, like the Miamisburg Mound or Middletown Mound. There's a couple in the vicinity, very large mounds, and I dare anybody to dig into them, because they haven't dug in them since the 1800s. 1864, I think, at the Miamisburg Mound. That's a long time when you have all these great colleges in the vicinity not to go do some archaeological research in something that should be vastly interesting. And there's a vast disinterest from institutionalized science to dig into those mounds and really understand who built them. That is a conspiracy in itself. And I get on the flat earthers side. I understand the whole conspiracy about Antarctica and whether or not Hitler was in Antarctica, and why it's the only place on earth where every country in the world can agree to have a treaty not to own, and that you can't even go there and explore it at all. There's a lot of things wrong with Antarctica. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conspiracies that are out there that are reasonably asked, and I hear a lot of the same people who are going flat Earth or young Earth. Earth is less than 6,000 years old, or only 6,000 years old, and they don't even trust the carbon dating process anymore because there's so much institutional fiction out there. Again, we saw with COVID, they lied right to our face and told us that you had to wear a mask in order to prevent the virus, which they made in a Wuhan lab with under nefarious conditions in order to create a bioweapon. And everybody has to deal with the fact that governments of the world plotted against them, and some of them lost loved ones because of it. So of course people are going to be skeptical, and they probably will turn to every bit of some kind of handrail they can get out of Scripture. But I think there's a more nefarious thing going on. I think a lot of the conspiracies, especially the giants, especially talking about Antarctica, talking about all this disclosure with aliens and everything is bouncing around out there. I find it interesting that all of a sudden there's YouTube and social media, the algorithms are allowing these discussions they're actually advancing these discussions. And I think the intention is to discredit those voices who are pointing out very valid conspiracies and trying to water them down with the flat earth conspiracies in order to take away the teeth of their arguments. So if people believe in flat earth, obviously everything else they say, they can't be believed either. And I think that's what's going on. Whether it's a human interference from the governments of the world messing with algorithms in these big tech companies to all of a sudden facilitate overwhelming amount of conspiracy theories in order to water them all down so nobody knows what to believe, or whether it's a non-human intelligence that's working with the algorithms to perpetuate all these issues. And I'm talking about algorithms because really on the internet, I mean, people see the things I do, but I've had the algorithms on me seriously clamped down for over 10 years, or like 15, even before algorithms were so easily manipulated. I understand how algorithms are tampered with in order to either promote people or try and deplatform them. And in the case of this one, all these conspiracies, I've seen that the flat earth conspiracies have suddenly got a lot of traction. That means the algorithms accepting it, where prior to, they probably would steer people away from that kind of talk. Because if you believe in the conspiracy that Satan runs the world and has taken over everything, of course you don't want people to run to Scripture. In this case, it's to, I think, discredit Scripture and make people who are advocating for flat earth look like a bunch of loony, crazy people, which when I see them and I hear them, and I think a lot of people, I have sympathy for a lot of the people who feel that way because they've been let down by what they thought were institutions they could trust. So Scripture fills that void. And in order to make them look like fools, the algorithms are giving them more of a platform. So you see this preponderance of this theory. Now it's getting a lot of traction. It's got millions of views, and people might have laughed at it and said in prior times, this sounds like the times of Christopher Columbus, when they thought they were going to fall off the edge of the earth. And going back to scriptural reference, when you have a regional understanding of the world, what other conclusion can you make? You read scripture, you know the 25 miles around your house, and everything else seems like a mystery. And can you trust anything that NASA gives you? Can you trust a telescope? Can you trust any of the reports that tell you about space and planets and everything that's going on out there? And I can understand the skepticism, but I can say that I've seen the curvature of the earth. I've been around the world, so I know how it works and how the time zones work. And I know people who have, again, put hardware on the moon. And pretty soon we're all going to be able to go to the moon and validate all the stuff that's there. And we're going to be able to validate the moon landings and see that was left behind. And, there's a lot there. But I totally understand the skepticism of anything anybody says. And I think the danger is that a lot of the lack of trust that people have in institutionalism has been embraced by the algorithms of those who are trying to control everybody, to try and attempt to make everybody look like complete loony bins because they're reaching for so many conspiracy theories in place of logic. Again, logic being destroyed because people have lost trust. And to perpetuate that lack of trust and to get other people to either follow them or not, you still control the narrative by getting everybody to jump on to a particular place where you can then control the information they see. And once they yield to that logic, then other ways of controlling them become more obvious. So I think it's a dangerous element that's happening as a breakdown of institutional trust has emerged. The flat earth conspiracies have risen to the top, and I look at what the algorithms on the internet have done to blow on that wind of distrust in order to perpetuate the dialogue in a direction they desire. And I would advise everybody to be cautious of that element and consider everything. It's good to ask questions. It's good to ask lots of questions, no matter where they take you. The information will eventually come about. And if you have to, I think it's much better to have scriptural reference that you can believe in, that brings goodness in life, as opposed to the validity of facts. It's better to have something that means something to you, that's good, that brings about goodness in your life. Even if it's a flat earth belief or a young earth belief, scripture is good for the human race to get their minds wrapped around. But then there's also the elements that want to control everybody and get everybody spinning all kinds of crazy circles for their own selfish interests, and you have to be aware of them. And why all of a sudden these stories have become so popular, that's a question everybody needs to be asking, because there's probably a nefarious reason for it. And I think it's some of the conspiracies that everybody's coming up with are turning out to be much more real than I think a lot of the people who want to control them would like. And one way to delude that is to throw out something that to throw out an element that might derail everybody. And I think that's where the flat earth conspiracy is coming from. So something to be cautious of. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.